It is awesome to see how Gainsight has grown up through the years, and with it, customer success management, or actually the other way around, how customer success management has really become an industry, and Gainsight has been a part of that. We've got an awesome closing session for you today with an all-star lineup of CEOs, and the first one we're going to introduce is a longtime personal friend, was actually a mentor to me when I was a CEO back 16 years ago now, is an advisor to the stars. Many of our CEOs in and around this industry have turned to him for advice and perspective through the years. And he recently surprised the world when he stepped back into the CEO slot several years ago to jump in as CEO of DocuSign and take them to what has now been widely reported as unicorn status. And so we've got a little teaser to introduce Keith Kroc, ladies and gentlemen.
Your dreams will determine your thoughts will determine your words will determine your habits, and your habits will determine your character and your destiny. And I think the same thing is true for a company.
Round of applause for Keith Kroc, please.
It might seem crazy what I'm about to say.
That's it, come on. There we go. You would expect nothing less, ladies and gentlemen. One more round of applause, Keith. A nice high kick there.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me, Byron.
Okay, so we've got to open with the thought I had years ago and the teaser here to this group, which was essentially, what the heck were you thinking? And I actually mean that very seriously, which is you'd achieved what most people would consider every level of success. You were CEO of Ariba through the rocket ship ride, one of the most successful IPOs in history. You had retired, quite financially successful, but personally successful. You were traveling the world. You were jumping in and out of board sessions, could essentially do anything you wanted with your time. And of all things, you decided to come back and work your butt off as CEO again. Why?
That's an easy question for me. We have great benefits at DocuSign. We have a great pension. It's obviously for that.
The masseuses are fabulous.
I did have an amazing time during that 6 or 7 year period when I wasn't working out. I say, when you're not being a CEO, I got to be a soccer mom, half-time, high school and junior high guys, and got a lot of chances to give back. And then all of a sudden I got a ring, and our first customer at Ariba calls me up. Now he's a venture capitalist. He goes, "Hey, Kroc, this is Pete." I go, "Pete, how you doing?" We named a product release after him. He was such a tough customer. And he goes, "I got to show you this company." I go, "Hey, I'm not going back and being the CEO. No, I just want to buy you a cup of coffee." So he came out, he showed it to me. I go, and he goes, "This is going to be like Ariba on steroids." And I looked at it, and I go, "I can't be, so come on, just come on the board." So I came on the board.
The old rope-a-dope move.
I was totally rope-a-dope, and then rope-a-doped again, where it's like the first board meeting, they go, "We don't have a chairman, we need a chairman." Everybody looks at me, I go, "Oh, okay." And then, all of a sudden I'm like going, man, I think this thing could take off. I mean, there was about 50 people in the company, maybe max. And I said, well, you want to go be the CEO. And I remember going home to my wife, Meta, married 10 years. And I go, "Meta, they want me to be the CEO." And I go, "You don't want me to do that because it's 7 by 24, you're out. And, once a month you're going to the fetal position under your desk. You don't want me to do this." And she goes, "The only thing I know is that you're so excited before you go to a DocuSign board meeting, and you're even more excited afterwards." And she goes, "I've seen, Father Keith, husband Keith, Purdue Keith, Sid Mackay Keith. I've seen, but I've never seen CEO Keith." She goes, "I want to see CEO Keith." And she goes, "Plus, who's the competitor again at DocuSign?" I go, "Well, it's paper." She goes, "That doesn't punch back." So I go, "Okay." And I'll tell you, it's been an amazing ride, and I definitely couldn't have done it without Meta, because all you guys know, CEOs or executives, it's a team sport. So it's been, it's been an amazing 8 years.
So for the CEOs in the room,
Yeah.
or the aspiring CEOs, how have you done it differently this time?
Yeah.
There has to be this liberation from having essentially no strings attached, where you can come back, you can do it on your terms, and yet you've been able to do it all over again. You've been phenomenally successful in another version, and yet I have to imagine you've approached it in a very different way this time with that different state of mind.
Yeah, everything, every situation is different, but, in essence, have used the same principles, literally the same playbook from Ariba, which was the same one from Erasmus, same one from GMF Robotics, in terms of vision, mission, values, team rules, long-term goals, strategy, execution. It's been very similar. Now, a thing that's different is at Ariba, we took the company public in less than 3 years. We were cash flow positive from our second quarter of existence. We only burnt through $3 million from the time we started to the time we went public. Gets up to $40 billion and all that.
That's very un-unicornish of you. Very old-fashioned now.
Now, in this case, DocuSign, in this whole category of digital transaction management, it's the biggest opportunity that I have ever seen, because literally every company is a potential customer, every department in the company is a potential customer, and every person is a potential end user. The competition is paper, and we look at it as a land grab. And
just on that
yeah.
point, raise your hand in the audience if you have used DocuSign's product, signed a DocuSign document, or seen it in your
Okay.
That's awesome.
Wow. That's incredible.
I'm sure
I saw a
there's
couple of people in the back. My chief of staff is here. He's going to get your names.
I literally did not see a hand that wasn't up. I'm sure there are some of you, but essentially to your point,
Yeah.
that it's becoming ubiquitous.
Yeah, it really is. And so we've invested hard. I'll tell you, some of the things we've done differently is, for example, we've integrated our equity financing strategy with our corporate development strategy. And so what I mean by that, if you look at our strategic investors, Google, SAP, Salesforce, Microsoft, Visa, Comcast, NAR, Samsung, country of Singapore, NTT, Mitsui, Deutsche Telekom, FedEx, all these guys.
You're going to acquire the corp dev part.
Well, if we could afford it, but for all those great investors, they're also great customers. They've rolled us out enterprise-wide with all but a few. We have technology integrations too, like BBVA and Citicorp now, and a go-to-market strategy. SAP resells us, Dell resells us. That's been a great strategy for us in terms of becoming the global standard in this new category, digital transaction management. And one of the other plays that we kind of took from the Ariba playbook is we're building out the DocuSign Global Trust Network. So that is frictionless, secure transactions universally translated worldwide. So now we have about 85 million unique users, 230,000 companies have standardized on us in 188 countries. We're putting 85,000 unique users on a day and tying that together. And that's very similar to the playbook with the Ariba network. And I was just talking to McDermott, the CEO of SAP, who bought Ariba a few years back. And, we were talking about it's the 20th anniversary of Ariba, and now $1 trillion of e-commerce goes through the Ariba network every year on an annual basis, and that's more than Amazon, eBay, and Alibaba combined.
That is awesome.
And I think this opportunity actually is greater.
So those are similarities. For the audience that perhaps many of them didn't live through the first generation, or it seems like a distant memory, this notion of on-prem software, let's talk about the differences.
Yeah.
With Ariba, customer success likely meant something very different. This notion of keeping your customers, making them happy in the days of on-prem software was a very different concept.
Yeah.
Contrast the two if you could.
Yeah.
How is implementing the post-sales world different in the SaaS days versus the Ariba experience? And you were one of the few executives that actually lived through that transformation. As a reminder to the audience, Ariba actually went from one model to another.
Right.
With the exception of probably Concur, maybe the only two that have done that under the public eye and to multi-billion-dollar outcomes. And so talk us through that journey.
Okay. In terms of how we were able to do that?
How you were doing it, and specifically around customers, what customer success means in a licensed software world versus this notion of they can drop you any day, and you have to deliver service and product every day.
Okay, let me start with how we made the transition, and I'll hit on the customer side. So in terms of the transition, when you're making that transition, we always said we needed three things. We needed an absolutely strong foundation. We had to have the will as a board and as a leadership team to make the hard decision, and the other thing you need is patience and perseverance. So in terms of a strong foundation, we had tremendous customer satisfaction with Ariba, and a huge thing behind that, the value and the results are so quantifiable. And we also had a great product architecture. It was the first enterprise application written on the internet. We had great people. Our CTO for 10 years, Craig Federighi, runs all software at Apple, reports right to Cook. He's one of the best in the business. So with that, you were able to have a real strong foundation. We also had a lot of cash in the bank. And we also, a lot of people don't know this, but when we started the company, we recognized the revenue over 2.5 years.
Oh, interesting. So you had some
we got the
notion
cash
of
up front.
amortization.
Yeah. So it gave us a little bit of a buffer, and we could see stuff coming. So that with that strong foundation, and then you really had to have the willingness to make the tough decisions. One of the things we did when, the whole world was enterprise software world was coming down, is we laid 1,000 people off in one foul swoop. And I remember going into the board meeting, and I look around the board, I go, how many of y'all been through a layoff? Everybody raised their hand. I go, by the show of fingers, how many? Whether you were laid off or you're a part of it, you were sitting on a board with it. We had like 38 fingers went up. Said, all right, now, let me ask you this question, by a show of fingers. How many times did you go, shoot, we cut too deep? Not one finger went up. I go, guys, we're going to cut deep, and we're not going to do death by 1,000 cuts. That was actually strategic.
And what was the date of this for reference to the audience?
Oh, shoot, I think it was probably 2002, maybe 2001.
So sort of the depths of the economic reset.
You bet.
And you were using the market and this pivot as a chance to do essentially a full reboot.
Absolutely. And then, you needed the patience and the perseverance. And at that time, we only had one competitor. It was Commerce One. They did multiple cuts. They didn't focus on customer satisfaction. They would overpromise and underdeliver, and they went bankrupt. That was always our goal.
And what about, for folks in the room, potentially making that transition or living with hybrid business models?
Yeah.
A number of inquiries we get around customer success have to do with hardware models that coexist with premium support or with software to service.
Yeah.
As they're thinking through the transition, what parts of that playbook can they borrow from, and what did you learn if you could go back and sort of tweak things even that you would have done differently?
Well, I think when you're making a transition like that, you have to keep your eye on and keep the customer's eye on the value that you're providing. Because if you're providing a lot of value for that customer, they're going to be patient with you. So I think that's a key aspect. I mean, for us at DocuSign, we have 3 value pillars. One is a huge impact on the bottom line. The other is reducing risk in terms of security and compliance. And the third is a great customer experience. So, it's interesting. So I was in Germany, I think it was about a month ago. The CEO of Deutsche Telekom was putting on his once a year, 1,000-person leadership conference. One day, their sole focus is on digitization and digital transformation, theirs and also helping their European customers. And he goes, Keith, you're going to be our first outside speaker. And we want to use DocuSign as a case study and your customers. So here's how he introduced me. This is a guy named Tim Hodges. He's actually a civil servant for the country of Germany. He's like a Silicon Valley German dude. He's also on BT. So he goes, yes, I just got back from T-Mobile's board meeting. I'm the chairman. They own 60% of T-Mobile. And he goes, everybody was saying we couldn't have launched the Apple VI without DocuSign. He goes, we paid $25 million for one use case for DocuSign. It was to our 3,000 retail stores. Last year, we saved 600 million pieces of paper. We put $200 million to the bottom line, and we took our average signing time from about 58 minutes down to less than 10.
because they're doing e-signing in stores for an iPhone 6.
Yeah, and the reason why they brought us in is because their jump program is free, so it's a loan under the covers. So they brought us in for compliance reasons, and also, it's got to be secure, and you can't even go down for a minute of maintenance. With that kind of value proposition, you can weather those kind of storms.
Okay, and then what about the second part of this? There's the transition on those values for the company to have the will to make it.
Yeah.
When you think about the customer side of that experience,
Yep.
and specifically the customer success
Yes.
role in those transformations, how is it different, and
Yeah.
how do you think about SaaS and subscription businesses
Yeah.
now and what customer success means to them?
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, you're in the people business and you're in the trust business. So, and I think about this when I think about the Gainsight guys, because we're implementing a DocuSign. I was just talking, person who's heading that, who's right here. First thing, I said, how's it going? She goes, it's going great. And the first thing she said, the team is absolutely fabulous. And you know what? At the end of the day, it is about that people. I mean, that's universal, and that has stood the test of time. But things are moving at a much more faster clip.
By the way, I think that's job security for most people in the room.
Yeah,
Good to hear.
on that DocuSign account, man.
Pay them well and hire great people.
Man, stock options.
So it starts with people.
Yeah.
And then when you think about the role, it's a different customer relationship.
Yes.
When you could, leave software in the hands of Accenture,
Yep.
collect your multi-million-dollar license,
Right.
and essentially walk away. Not that you would have.
Right.
And people have contrasted the Commerce One story and Ariba story perhaps for different tendencies there in terms of the ultimate customer success.
Yep.
But that was a possibility. You could literally be hands-off if you chose to.
Yep.
In the SaaS world, in the transaction world of DocuSign, you
you
don't have that luxury.
Absolutely not, man. I mean, over big enterprise deals, it's typically 3 years, but for our commercial customers, typically annual. But still, you have to perform every day, and it's like being any kind, private or public. The expectations keep going up, so you got to keep delivering. And and I always say, the formula for customer satisfaction, there's a numerator and there's a denominator. The numerator is what you deliver. The denominator is the expectations you set. So for you sales guys, don't overpromise, because that's going to come back and hurt you. And if you can overdeliver and actually underpromise, that's all that makes all the difference in the world.
Okay, I want to build on the team dynamic part of that in
Yep.
terms of hiring great people and setting expectations
Yep.
internally, externally.
Yep.
Now, we've had you speak at CEO conferences. I've seen you in action firsthand on a board member and as a CEO. Culture is something that you live through and through. It's a buzzwordy thing now because people want to hire into culture. You were one of the godfathers of this notion of kind of a modern corporate culture.
Yeah.
And I've got a quote that I want to pull out. This
Yeah.
was in conjunction Fast Company, gave you all sorts of love recently as the most innovative company, culture, a lot of stuff. But there's a fun quote I pulled out of Fortune in an interview, which you said, this was your ideal day. It includes high fives as you walk through the door at work with brilliant people around you, big wins on the scoreboard, and happy customers who love what you're doing. I want to break this down, though, because people don't know how much you live this day in and day out. And so what is this notion of a supportive, functional corporate culture? What is this idea that it's if you love your customers, they love you back? There's this dynamic of what the high fives, like that ethos is at DocuSign.
Yeah. So, of course, CEO's number one job is to build a high-performance team. And I think it's a high-performance team. That's how I look at culture. And by the way, so let's take DocuSign, for example. I think the whole team at DocuSign globally gets that this is a noble cause. To be able to change the way business is done and to change the way people live their lives. We simplify people's lives securely. That's and it's also one of those opportunities that comes around once in a lifetime, maybe twice if you're lucky, and people get that. Then also, on the other hand, the people are extremely competitive, and the only thing that's better than winning a customer is taking one away from your potential competition. So it's with that dynamic. And then the other dynamic, too, is this concept of the DocuFamily culture, because it is a team sport. And so we don't call the spouse or whatever significant other. They're the significance, right? And the families too. I mean, docu-kids, docu-teens, docu-boom-boom, all that. And if you look at that in terms of dynamics, and when we talk about our business, we're in the trust business. What we do is provide a trusted service. And we kid around a lot about ourselves and not take ourselves serious, but at DocuSign, trust is sacrosanct. And so with all those notions, and by the way, you got to be funny too. And by the way, the kind of funny is a fancy word from Ohio boy, but self-deprecating means mocking yourself out. So that's and you stir all that together, and then to get everybody to work as a team, we measure our success by our customer success. So let me give you an example of that. It's not just those three value pillars, but we have a thing at DocuSign called our one key metric. Everybody in the company is compensated on from receptionist on up, in cash and stock. And here's what it is. It measures customer adoption. And we measure that through successful transactions. So you go, well, why customer adoption? Well, because it is the number one driver of our customers' ROI. It's also the highest correlating factor to our NPS score. And by the way, it's the best way to spread the DocuSign brand, so we can invest in the product.
And just to clarify, so everyone realizes that, say that one more time slowly. You literally compensate every individual. Off of essentially an adoption metric, which is
yes.
highly correlated to customer
yes.
success and adoption.
Yes.
Okay.
Every employee around the world. Okay. And by the way, how about when you're sitting there with the CEO of Deutsche Telekom, or we had the CEO of McDonald's, CEO of Equifax, CFO of McKesson at our user conference here a month, and look them in the eye and say, we are totally aligned with you. Everybody in the company is. Because for them also it's all about adoption, because now it's about speed. Because they're either gonna be disrupted, or they're gonna take disruption and use it as a strategic offensive weapon against their competitors. And that's why if you look at, for example, our sales, it all starts at the top with the CEOs, because that's their number one. Let me put it this way: I'd say literally almost every Fortune 500 CEO within their top 3 initiatives is their digital transformation. And if it's not, then they have a guy who reports right to them who's their chief digital transformation officer. And they look at DocuSign as the catalyst for their digital transformation. And the CEO of Deutsche Telekom, Tim Hodges, so a little bit after I spoke, he goes, yes. He goes, here's what we've learned from DocuSign, is that in order to steer the ship, it has to be moving. And the way you get it, actually said, look at Deutsche Telekom is a Mercedes. In order to steer the Mercedes, it has to be moving. and he goes, what DocuSign has taught us, the way to get it moving is through quick wins. That gives us momentum. Because this is not like a 5-year ERP implementation or a 2-year CRM. We can DocuSign enable the C-suite in hours, a department in days, some weeks. So, so being part strategically for those customers in terms of being the catalyst or digital transformation.
Seeing their adoption drives their success. So I want to ask that question of the audience, and I'm expecting the inverse of our prior hands raised, which is raise your hand if your company broadly, all employees are compensated on some form of adoption or product usage within the company. Raise your hand. Wow, I see a few hands.
Come on to DocuSign.
Well, no, it's interesting. As customer success becomes appreciated, recognized, and more of a pure organization within these entities, you think of, this conference was a few hundred people 3 years ago.
Right.
This notion of customer success was just emerging a few years ago.
Right.
I suspect that will change. And it's not right for every company. There's different business models, different approaches. But as a concept, this notion of the entire company's job is success. The entire company's job is adoption. And it makes absolute sense.
The beautiful thing is that, because how do you build a high-performance team? recruit the absolutely best people, get them to work together as a team and set a crystal clear direction, right, with a playbook. So get them to work together as a team. By the way, nothing gets them work better than all focusing on one thing, especially if it's external, especially if it's the customer, and especially if it's measurable. And by the way, how about teamwork through functional departments? And so, when we do our annual performance reviews, which we are right now in the process of finishing up, what did you do to contribute to customer adoption, the OKM metric, right? And everybody can.
Pretty provocative and pretty awesome. We've got a stable of great CEOs behind us that are about to come on, but I've got one last question for the group, which was my other surprise. In October, when seeing you in action again as CEO, just seeing how much you love it, you live it, the energy, how the company and the room feeds off of you as a leader, I was surprised when you announced you were going to step down. And I know that's too strong of a word perhaps, but to make room to still be involved with the company for many years, but as chairman this time. Explain your thinking there, and what do you want to see from DocuSign over the next many years, as you're clearly not going to run away from the company?
Yeah. Well, it shouldn't come as a surprise to you. And when I originally jumped on board as the CEO, it's like, Croc, just do it for 2 years. I said, all right, man, just 2 years.
I never believed it, though.
I know. Now it's coming up on 8 years, and I'll tell you what, this is the ideal time to bring in more firepower. I'm not going anywhere, fully engaged. And if you think about it, DocuSign has achieved escape velocity in terms of incredible blue chip customers, the best investors, strategic partners in the world, an incredible platform technology, now, millions of users. So the time now, the strategic chess moves have been said. Now it's time to execute, and oh yes, ring the bell. But you know what? For a successor, for me at DocuSign, the next CEO, I want whoever that is to have the honor of ringing that bell, because chances are they probably haven't done that before, whether they come from a public company or a private. So I think that's cool.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, a true champion of customer success, Keith Croc.
Thanks.
It might seem crazy what I'm about to say. Sunshine, she's here, you can take a break.
Okay, next up is going to be my co-moderator for this session, a good personal friend, peer investor in the industry, and also a DocuSign investor, Stacey Bishop from Scale Venture Partners.
Yo, what's up, Keith?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Welcome, everyone. Wow, this is a big crowd. This is exciting. Can't even see far out there. So I'm lucky to interview another CEO. Yes, we're investors in DocuSign, thrilled investors. That was great to hear from Keith. We've got another company coming up, a company called Hubspot, which we'll get a chance to interview the CEO there, Brian Halligan, who's in town all the way from Boston. So we're thrilled to have him here. And go to show a little thing here.
Best practices in the sales industry today are the exact same best practices we were using back in 1995. Nothing's changed in sales. It's the same playbook we've been using for 20 years.
There we go. All right.
Didn't expect that song. That was nice.
Perfect. I knew. I've seen it before. I've
Yes.
seen you dance a little to the Grateful Dead, so it's good.
Embarrassing.
It's awesome. No, it's good. So great to have you here. Thrilled to have you. We were longtime investors and still are in HubSpot, and I was fortunate to be on the board of the company for several years up until about 10 days ago. So thrilled to have you here all the way from Boston. HubSpot's kind of created a movement around inbound marketing. You and Dharmesh Shah started the company about 10 plus years ago. Would love to know a little bit about that journey. of building the company and sort of ups and downs that you had throughout that period.
Sure. A couple thoughts on it. I sort of break the journey into 3 pieces. First year, it took us about a year at HubSpot to get to product market fit. Could we build something that anyone on the planet was mildly interested in buying? And then the next kind of 6 years of the journey was, can we get any kind of math working? Can we get the cost to acquire to be X and the total lifetime value to be at least 3X? So can we profitably acquire some customers? That took us a while to overcome that. And nowadays, we're more, I call it sort of the growth stage, and we're kind of more of a scale-up than a startup. It's, can you get those unit economics, those customer economics working at scale? Can you pour a lot more in the top and have the total lifetime value continue to scale in a nice way? That's kind of where we are. So the demonstration I do with all the HubSpot company meetings, so here's how HubSpot worked 4 years ago. It costs us $10,000 to acquire a customer, so you put $10,000 into the HubSpot machine. And then the total lifetime value, plus or minus, was about $25,000. Stick $10,000 in the machine, get $25,000 out. And we were in that mode for a long time, and that math doesn't scale particularly well. As we hit the gas, it didn't scale particularly well. We're in a better place now. We're in scale-up mode. We're in that mode for a few years. And I tell you what, Stacey, scale-up mode's great. A lot of founders are like, they pine for the good old days. Good old days in the startup and eating ramen and all that crap. Those days sucked. These are the good old days. We have scale. We have 20,000 customers who we can really impact. We have 1,300 employees who really impact them. We have public investors we can impact. We have partners. This is really the fun time for me in HubSpot. So it's been an interesting and great ride so far.
That's great. So in the early days, given your target customer base, you're mostly focused at the small to medium enterprise, and there's a natural churn that happens in that small to medium enterprise. Companies go out of business. There's budget constraints. All kinds of things happen. So your churn's just high.
Yep.
And in the early days at HubSpot, you particularly faced that as a company. Churn was a challenge. What are some of the things that you did to kind of mitigate that churn and really bring that down?
Yeah. Fixing churn for HubSpot was the play that allowed us to move from a relatively unscalable kind of startup mode to a highly scalable, high-growth scale-up mode. And the numbers are very interesting. If you look at the numbers, I'm a numbers guy. 3-4 years ago, these are approximate, our customer retention was in the high 60s per year. So we lost a fair number of customers. Mm-hmm. And our upsell was 5%-ish. So our total retention was in the mid-70s, let's say. And then you roll the clock forward to when we went public a year ago when we reported these numbers. The customer retention had gone from the high 60s to now it's 82, 83, somewhere in there. So the customers are sticking around a lot longer. They're getting a lot more value. And then the upsell went from 5% to it's about 18%. So our revenue retention hovers right around 100%. And that made all the difference. That made our unit economics. So it used to be you put $10,000 cost to acquire customers, $10,000, you get $25,000 total lifetime value out. Now, it's very different. You put $10,000 into the machine, it's actually about $11,000 or $12,000, and we get $55,000 out of the machine.
Right, that's great.
And so the ROI is much higher, the payback's higher, and we can hit the gas and grow without the machine shaking too much.
Or the hole in the bucket of just the customers falling out.
The churn, for us, the existential question from day one in HubSpot was churn. Can we bring on a customer, get them set up, get them delighted in creating tons of value with the product and services, and tell their friends and build a big business. And frankly, it took us a good 7-8 years to figure that out.
Right.
And we were obsessed with churn.
And what are some specific things that you did?
Yep.
Those were good economics numbers, but what were some of the actual things that you did, when you were bringing customers on board or figuring out which customers were a fit?
Sure. I think part of the issue a lot of companies have is they put the churn problem or the upsell problem on the customer success team or on the services team or whatever your team is called that onboards and is responsible for customer success. And they have some control. You all in the room certainly have some control, some levers you can pull. In order to move ours as much as we did, it was a top to bottom, every department had to attack churn. And it's kind of interesting the way it works. So we basically went to every department and said, what can you do to help us improve retention? And so we went to our head of marketing, and we said, geez, we're getting all these leads, inbound's really working, but gosh, what can you do to help us improve retention? And he actually had a very big impact on retention. He basically just tweaked his lead scoring rules. So we get 70 or 80,000 leads into HubSpot a month. We score them and hand the best ones to reps. We used to score the leads and hand the leads that are most likely to close to the reps, but we tweaked the algorithm and said, we're only going to call on the leads that are likely to not only close, but stick around and refer for a long time. So that lead scoring algorithm is really important. Then we asked our VP of sales, what can you do for us? We need to fix this churn rate. And he's like, well, I'm the sales guy. I'm like, no, you need to help me with this retention issue. And so he thought a lot about that. And it turns out the most important document inside of HubSpot, by far the most important document that drives so much behavior, is the darn sales commission plan. That is a very important document, and it dictates all kinds of things. We changed the commission plan, and so the reps now get paid not just on new, but they get paid on their retention rates. They get promoted unless they have a certain retention rate, so retention's built into the comp plan. And then obviously we asked our product guys to help, and HubSpot's got a wide suite. We do everything from search engine optimization and social media management and blogging. We manage your website, marketing automation, CRM. We said to the product folks, which part of the product delivers the most value and is most highly correlated with people sticking around for a long time and referring and all that. And so they doubled down on the part that was sticky. And then we changed our pricing model too. So our pricing model, we moved to a model where people can buy additional features, but our customers pay more as their database grows. So as inbound marketing works better for them and they're getting more value, they pay us. So our incentives are nicely aligned with our customers. Then obviously the services group, we did a bunch of stuff in there, a lot of what's been talked about over the last week. We added headcount. We put stuff in like Gainsight that helped a lot. But it was a full company effort to attack it. And I think if you really want to make a dent in retention and get your unit economics cranking, it's got to be top to bottom.
Yeah, all company involved. Now, what about the customer support or customer success? Is it a good thing when customers actually call in your customer success team over time?
It's actually, if you look at the math, our support center, it's sort of a Zappos-style support. We want people call in to ask us all kinds of questions, not just about the software, but how the heck do I use Twitter effectively, or how do I effectively use Pinterest, and what should the title of this blog article be? So they kind of call us about everything. And the customers who call in a lot are far more successful. Their hand-holding is part of what we do for our customers. That's been a big key part of it.
Got it. And you mentioned you get every department involved in customer success. So how do you make sure your leadership is all a part of this and it's a core tenet of your team?
Yeah.
What are some things you do there?
Yeah, it is a core tenet. I think part of it is because I'm obsessed with customer retention and customer value. And I think, so I actually worked with Keith Kroc in the 1990s at a software company called Parametric Technology. And we sold big license deals to big manufacturing companies and big upfront money and then a maintenance stream thereafter. And I just think about selling in that era versus selling in today's era. And there's two big changes in my mind. The one change is in my days at PTC as in sales organization, it was very much a buyer beware world. The onus was on the buyer to make a good decision, do their due diligence, and once they bought it, they could kind of figure it out. Today, that's very much flipped on its head, where it's a seller beware world. If you sell poorly, you oversell, you misset expectations, your product doesn't perform, the customer has an endless number of outlets for complaining about you, many of which people hear on the internet. Not only that, but almost all business models are moving to subscription businesses. They're just better models. They take a little longer, but they're better. And customers vote with their paychecks, so they can easily cancel your contract. So times have changed, and I think all of HubSpot, we understand that, and we try to beat that message into our customers. A couple little things we do that are helpful is at every management meeting, we have a customer join that meeting, and the management team basically interviews that customer. We talk about that customer. We have customers in all the time talking to our management team. That helps a lot. And then the metrics are key. You want to build, in my mind, there's 3 metrics you need as a SaaS company to really build an awesome company. One is you need high growth. Not just high growth, though, you need profitable growth. You have to have those unit economics working. Your CAC to total lifetime value ratio is really key. And third, you need a high net promoter score. If you have those 3 checkboxes, My goodness, you should invest in every one of those companies.
We do. We look for those.
They're hard to find.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think everyone at Hub, we're kind of SaaS folks, and so we obsess about those metrics and look at them. We look at the P&L as a key metric, but the P&L kind of looks backwards. These unit economics and NPS tend to look forward, and
Right.
so we like those unit economics a lot.
Right. So jumping over to culture, HubSpot's got a very strong culture with the company, well-known, a published culture code. How does that impact your customer success and customer happiness? Do happy employees make happy customers?
I think it's a virtual loop. I think happy employees make happy customers make happy employees. I'll tell you one kind of interesting story about HubSpot. A few years ago, we brought in a terrific person to be our COO, JD Sherman, great guy. And he was from Akamai. And he was at Akamai from around 200 million, where we're at HubSpot today, to a couple billion. And he told the story how at Akamai, he painted a picture for the company as we're going to be $1 billion in revenue, and really rallied the company around that $1 billion in revenue goal. And we were all like, well, okay, yeah, it's fine, let's throw that out there. So JD, very new at HubSpot, he posted a wiki post about our big goal. We're going to be $1 billion in revenue. The funny thing that happened is no one cared. They really was like fell on dead ears. A lot of people complained, like, who cares? Let's make our customers successful. Let's embrace our mission. Let's get into this. This isn't just about money. And I think today's employees, they're much more motivated by mission than money. And a mission of not only selling lots of customers, but delighting them, get the word of mouth up. That's a mission that our employees get really excited about. So our incentives with the employees are very much aligned. So our culture is very much built into our culture. It's built into our mission.
Yeah. One last quick question.
Sure.
So you've got 13,000 or so customers, growing rapidly, adding number of customers. How do you reach all of them? How are you able to engage with them?
Yeah, we have 19,000
oh, goodness.
now.
Okay.
We communicate them with all kinds of different ways. We segment them, so we have 3 different segments, so the engagement model is different. Our low-end segment, there's a lot of kind of marketing automation type of engagement. We're starting to do some of that with Gainsight. There's a higher touch in that mid-market segment. In the slightly bigger enterprise segment, there's a lot more touch. What we're trying to do with new technology is give the people who touch the customers incredible information about who's doing well or who's scuffling, and enable them to really add value. That's a big initiative of ours. I think automation's coming to everything, whether we like it or not, and tools like Gainsight, tools like Hubspot, you're able to automate some of that experience in a way that's delightful for the company and delightful for the customer. So we're doing a lot of that these days.
Got it. So you got a lot on your plate. Well, good. I think that's the end of our time here. So thank you so much, Brian. It was great to have you here. Great to have you with this audience. So really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Yep.
Yeah. You get to keep dancing.
Alrighty, so we're going to call Stacey back up here in just a moment, and we've got 3 more CEOs for you that are going to get into the details now of how do we implement this in our companies and your companies. We've got the high-level guidelines from some of the most successful CEOs in our industry, and we've got 3 CEOs, public and private experience, large enterprise SMB businesses that are going to talk about what this means to implement it within their businesses. So Stacey, do you want to set up the video and intro who we have coming on?
Sure. So we will start with Kirk Kropp from Apttus. That's who we have. We have
Rick from MindBody.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Rick from MindBody will be joining us. He was a little late, so that's why I was slow to,
yes. Yeah,
slow to remember. And Joe Payne of Code42 as well, here to join us.
Excellent. So we've got a little video teaser as we get the stage reset for them.
Yo.
What's really changed in the B2B marketing world is that buyers want to facilitate their own process.
In almost every analyst report, we are the leader or top the lead of our respective category.
Business is designed to improve people's lives. This is a purpose that I could really get excited about.
Yo. What's up, Pete?
Byron. Good to see you.
Get in the middle. You're,
All right.
Where you want us?
All right.
come on down. Thank you.
Oh, here, we're going the two ends. There we go. Thank
Okay, so to orient folks, we've got Joe, Kirk, and Rick here. I've had the pleasure of working with two of you as investors, and unfortunately it wasn't good enough to get into Apttus, but congratulations on building a pretty nice business there as well, Kirk. And to jump into it, we've got an audience here of executives and professionals who are CSM experts. We've just had the reinforcement from two great CEOs talking about how they set the directive from the top down. The three of you, I suspect, would have similar experiences, but I want to push you to the next level. I want to push you to the details of what are tangible things beyond setting a corporate culture, setting goals. What are the things that you can actually do to elevate CSM within the organization? What are tangible examples of how you've done it? Keith suggested the idea of comp everyone in the entire company based on that metric. I suspect that'll be a popular one that many in the audience will take home with them. But maybe if we start with you, Joe, and give us some examples. I've seen you in action with Eloqua and multiple companies. Share with the audience some of the things you've done to highlight the importance of customers.
Yeah, I think it all starts with starting with a customer-oriented culture. And you hear that a lot from people. A lot of things I've heard today could be described as motherhood and apple pie. And so what we try to do in my company is we really try to make that come alive, that whole culture come alive. So it's things like giving the customers a money-back guarantee on the software that they purchase, right? Giving customers a 3-year price guarantee. Hey, we're not going to get more money out of you by just selling you the same things. We got to sell you more or different features, etc. One of the little things that I just did, I just joined Code42 about a year ago when I first got there, was we renamed all the conference rooms after our customers. And there's lots of little things, and the little things add up. And over time, the employees and the customers begin to believe you really believe in this. You really want to put customers first. So I'm a huge believer also in the CEO living customer first also. So I had a deal this week that came in, and our CFO was like, we're going to raise the price every year by 6% or 7%. And I took that off the table, and I said, nope, we're not going to raise it at all. And he was all flummoxed. But I'm like, we need to live the customer first mantra from the top down. And again, it's lots and lots of little things that put the customer first. And the last thing I'll comment on that is 30% of the bonus of every single employee at Code42, and I was the CEO of Eloqua before, where I worked with you, Byron, and it was the same thing at Eloqua. 30% of everyone's bonus was based on customer satisfaction. And at Code42, the way we define that is, first, how customers vote with their mouth. In other words, what do they tell you on their NPS score? That's a third of the grade. Second, how customers vote with their feet. That's your renewal rate. And then lastly, third, how customers vote with their wallet. That's your upsells and your additional MRR that you might get from a customer. And we take those three metrics and we build a model, and then we judge ourselves on that model every quarter to see how we're doing in customer satisfaction. And there's no greater thing than standing in front of your customer, and Keith mentioned this, and being able to tell your customer, look, we pay everyone based on your satisfaction. We all care about your satisfaction. And it really does make a very big difference.
Excellent. I'm not going to put Rick or Kirk on the spot directly with this money-back guarantee idea. As investors, that scares me a little bit, but I know you didn't have to use it much. But other things to add in terms of how your companies have implemented this in a tangible way, examples where folks in the audience can take it back, go to their CEOs and say, hey, I just heard a great piece of advice from some awesome CEOs. Why don't we do this?
Well, I think the first thing is to have a shared sense of consciousness of what's going on with your customer base. At MindBody, we serve over 53,000 small brick-and-mortar businesses in 134 countries. It's a deep challenge for us to truly understand what's going on with the customer. And we implemented something a year ago that we call vital signs. And every Tuesday, everyone involved, the key leaders, and these are typically the frontline supervisors and managers that are responsible for the customer experience all the way from demand generation to onboarding to daily customer service to product development, stand in front of their peers and show the latest results. So the metaphor of vital signs is, in fact, the pulse of the business. That's been a big breakthrough for us because we see firsthand what's happening while it's happening. We're super pumped about the opportunity now with Gainsight to even get more information into the vital signs.
And you're living it with the shirt. For those
That's
who
right.
can't
Customer
read.
success.
Customer
wearing it on
success.
LinkedIn.
Quite impressive.
Yeah.
Kirk, anything to add?
So in our case, echoing everything else that's been said, but I think the deep philosophical root of putting your customer first is actually the single most important thing, especially from the CEO or the leader of the company. And what we did when we started our business 10 years ago, there were 2 other founders, there were 3 of us. By the way, we didn't raise any capital for 7 years, that's why.
I forgive you.
We didn't take your capital. We ran it profitably for 7 years. I got them to sit around my fire pit, and we wrote on the back of a napkin what was important to us. And to give you some context, in my previous life as an executive in a software company, I coined myself the Chief Apologetic Officer, because I would travel around the world. In the mornings, I'd do a great presentation in front of a customer. In the afternoon, I'd be apologizing to a chief procurement officer of some really large company. And we were so done with this that we wanted to define the values of Apttus. And so we did, and we wrote in the back of this napkin, what did we want to do individually. And when we put it together, there were 3 values that we put straight on the website. Customer-centric is what we called it, was the first value. There were 2 others, which I won't get into. And that really set the direction of everything we did. That was back in 2005, 2006. And when you think about software companies in those days, not quite the customer centricity that I think that has transpired since. In terms of tangible things, there's really 2 big things that we do. And it was an awakening about a year ago that just implementing software itself is insufficient for a customer. That at the end of the day, what's the most important thing is the outcome. And the outcome is a combination of implementing software, but doing a whole bunch of other things. So we twisted our company from implementing software, ticking the boxes of what the customer expects functionally, to what is the outcome and have we hit the outcome? And that changes your whole perspective all the way down the path, from your sales engagement, because you're talking about outcomes, right in your sales engagement, to how you implement the software, to how you service the software, how do you have CSMs around the software. So that was one that's really transformed the way we think. And the second is something so trivial, but has been amazing impact, which is every 6 months, we do a click-through with our customer, a blind click-through with 10 users at a customer that will sit and we'll just ask them to talk consciousness, free consciousness, and we watch them clicking through the app. And then we ask them, why are you going to these 2 pages? And we find it's not quite optimized, and we change that user experience. So you get the user experience to be happy, and you get the executives who put a lot of money inside your account, inside your company, to be happy because you've given them the outcome. So those are the 2.
Byron, just to build on that, I want to build on the money-back guarantee, because it makes your investors nervous. Byron was one of my investors. When we rolled it out in 2008, my head of customer success at the time, Paul Tashima, said, you guys are living in the dream world. If we roll this out, half of our customers are going to exercise it. And that was at Eloqua. And that was like, we all took a step back and we realized, if that's actually true, we ought to be changing what we're doing, right? And so as you guys take that idea back to your CEOs, and your CEOs go, that's crazy, we would never do that. Ask yourself, why not? Well, what if people exercise it? Well, then don't we want to know that? Because the money-back guarantee turned out to be a canary in the coal mine for our business. Because when somebody exercised it, I was gleeful, because I was like, oh, now we can figure out where we messed up. And it's a canary in the coal mine, so you can figure out where in your process, was it implementation? Did we oversell it? Did we not get there in time? What did we do wrong? Was there a product issue? What was it? And we can fix that early rather than learning about it a year from now or 2 years from now when they're up for renewal, because then we'll save all these people in between. And so that turned out to be a really transformative thing. And I will tell you that our employees picked up their shoulders a little bit and said, we stand behind the products we sell. What more could you want? And so it was a really defining thing for us at Eloqua, and I think it really helped our customers realize, man, you guys got to be make us successful, because if you don't, we're going to get our money back. So it sounds like, hokey, but it really made a huge difference in our business.
Yeah, so we're all here at this conference. I think there's 3,000 of us here. Customer success conference. Why has customer success become such a thing? Brian Halligan mentioned it in selling his software. It's become a seller aware of your customer. What's your thinking on that in terms of sort of the rise of customer success? I mean, a company like Gainsight didn't even exist 5 years ago.
Well, I think what we have in common is we're in recurring revenue businesses, and so we have a significant cost of acquisition, and comparing that to lifetime value is 2 things. Most important, first of all, what is the gross margin you're earning on a recurring basis from this customer, and what is your attrition rate? So customer success, from my standpoint, is the science of getting behind those causal factors that are affecting those things in a good or bad way.
Yeah, and in my view, the world has moved to a subscription economy. Virtually every product and service, people are aspiring to be a subscription because it's a better economic model, it's more revenue predictive, and the beauty about a subscription is you as the provider have skin in the game. I heard a question earlier on in one of the interviews around what's the difference behind firewall software and a subscription.
Right.
At Oracle, they used to call it a drive-by shooting. You would sell the software and get the hell out of Dodge.
Right, right.
Sorry
Shelfware.
for all those who come from Oracle, but I was there too. But the model has fundamentally changed, right?
Right.
If you have a renewal, if you have an upsell or a cross-sell, or if you have a bigger product footprint, you need to pay attention to customers. So economics is an important part of it, but what's much more important is just having the customer satisfied so that all the other factors come together.
Got it.
We used to have an annual contract, and we first launched our SaaS solution in 2005. And several years ago, we just went to a month-to-month. And it's actually our version of the money-back guarantee, because if we're not keeping the customer satisfied, they're only committed for the next 30 days. What we found is actually that took the drama out of this annual renewal. We are immediately conscious of what's going on with them. We have a team called Client Care, whose job it is, if there's somebody who's reaching out to us and is not happy, then we're immediately on top of that. Where I'm excited is how we get more proactive. How do we look at the precursors of impending customer failure and be out in front of them? I think that's a big opportunity for us moving forward.
Right, and you touched on that because, I mean, we've got two companies here at two ends of the spectrum. You know, Apttus has 500 customers, you with your 50,000 plus customers, balancing that. You mentioned the vital signs. You know, what, Kirk, can you do specifically for 500 customers to sort of zero in on those? What are some examples of things that your customer success team does?
So in our case, we obviously have great tools like Gainsight, and we have the infrastructure to manage it. But at the end of the day, our product footprint is very large. So we focus on a space called quote to cash, which essentially connects the CRM system to the ERP system. So it's a mission critical process. It involves many different audiences, from general counsels to head of sales to workers. And so for us, the most important thing is the continuous engagement from a person. So it becomes an expensive model. So we do have about 550 customers. They pay us a lot, but but we need to have that physical care on the customer, not just the tools and emailing them, touching them, but actually having that physical care and doing those click-throughs every 6 months, testing the outcomes, are they getting that, those sorts of things. So it's a high-touch model. And we observed Salesforce back in the early 2000s, who I would argue really pioneered this whole CSM thing. Salesforce seemed to be the company thinking about these things more than other software companies. So we would observe their models and just try and do the same thing, except we get more per user than they do.
Rick, I suspect things are a little different with 50,000.
Right.
How do you manage customer success? You can't throw bodies at it. You can't get too personal, or you get overwhelmed.
Well, you know, we've always felt that, you know, we're a software and a service company in one. Our customers can call us 24/7, 365, toll-free, anywhere in the world. And we have customer teams, support teams in California, New York, and the UK to support that. In the last year, what we've added to our software is multi-tier, so we can move people up a value chain. And that's given us a whole new way of looking at this concept of customer success. Up to this point, it's primarily been reactive. In other words, if they called us and asked a question and needed help from us, then we could dig in with them. And if they expressed that they're really unhappy, then we could take them to somebody to give them an extra level of care. We have something called MindBody University. So we offer these universities all over the world, and they're typically 100 to 150 of our clients who go deep with us for 3 days. It touches a small percentage of our clients, but they tend to be the most forward-thinking kind of thought leaders in the space. And we're talking about fitness studios, salons, spas, wellness centers, children's activity centers. So that's been one way that we've touched them. Again, I think there's enormous opportunity for us. Of the three of us, we're the newbies to the Gainsight game. We just signed the contract last week. I think that's why I'm sitting here. Anyway.
Actually, we need the seat from someone who hasn't signed yet.
Yeah. So we're really excited. Our team is here. They're sitting right in the front row, super pumped about learning how to implement more proactive techniques. But it is a challenge. This is, over 290,000 wellness practitioners are being managed in our system. 390 million sessions, classes and appointment sessions were delivered in our software last year. $5 billion transferred through. There's a lot going on. So we've had to, thank you, Scott. We've had to learn how to, they've got a cheering section. We've had to learn how to look at the data across multiple channels and understand it and know how to pick out from the signal to noise ratio, those things that really matter. It's something we're still working on.
Yeah, I'd just love to add that. Our company, Code42, has a product called Crash Plan. We have 300,000 users on the consumer level. Yeah. We have 30,000 businesses, and we have 2,000 enterprise customers, including 7 of the top 10 technology companies in the world, right? Mm-hmm. So Salesforce, Apple, Oracle, et cetera. So I would say that the most important thing for the team in this room is to not treat customer success as a one-size-fits-all exercise. So it is your customer segmentation model. There's literally nothing more important that you can do than build a great customer and segmentation model, so that you've got enterprise customers you're going to treat one way, like Apttus does. You've got mid-market customers and small business customers you're going to treat a different way. And then in our case, we have 300,000 consumers that we're going to treat a different way. And you have to think about how does customer success affect all those folks? But building that model is key. Karen Pisha, who runs our customer success team, ran it at Adaptive, ran it at Eloqua, and she came in and spent 3 days with the team building that model and finding the right balance, and you'll staff it very differently. So all of you who are thinking about customer success, make sure that you're sophisticated enough to be building those segmentation models, because you're going to treat different customers differently. You have to. That doesn't mean you don't like the smaller ones. It just means that you can't put the kind of effort into a $5,000 a year customer that you can a $1 million a year customer.
Yep. Well, okay, so building off of that, it's interesting. Kirk and Rick, what's your view on the team segmentation as well? And how do you think about when you're doing mentorship for your executives and your managers within the company, in the CSM organization specifically, the folks in this room, how should they think about career development in this new role? How do you talk to them about, it's the career path there, the role at the executive table, those sorts of things going forward as CSM grows in importance?
So in our case, the CSM role is really important because we do sell big product footprints. They are mission critical to these large companies, so we have a lot of resources. So I don't think in our case there's a question of, is there a career path? What are the options available to me? I think it's sort of intrinsically understood. We're growing very rapidly. We're growing about 80% on a GAAP basis year on year right now, so it's a very rapid growth. And so I think just that, coupled with the fact that we have this customer centricity philosophy, shows them that there's opportunity. Now, we have to manage it properly, and there are some new things that we're doing to understand how to develop the career paths, but I don't think it's a question of, should I be in a CSM function, is there an opportunity for me? I think it's viewed very, very positively, and a lot of people from other parts of the org, for instance in sales or in professional services, often actually want to come into the CSM function because it's the same customer engagement, but from a different perspective. So I think from a career perspective, I wouldn't think that's an issue.
For us, we look at frontline technical support and onboarding training as the boot camp of MindBody. You really get to understand where the rubber meets the road, how our software affects these small business owners. And our software is deeply important to them. They literally have their whole livelihood on the line with what we're doing for them. But now we have this team, a customer success team, that really is looking first and foremost to that point about segmentation to the most valuable customers. So we can range from an independent personal trainer or a hairstylist who's worth about $60 or $70 a month to us in revenue, all the way up to the very largest customer of ours is Orange Theory Fitness. They have 500 fitness studios, multinational, on our system. They're truly an enterprise customer. And so we scale our approach, and it's going to be some of our sharpest, most experienced people interacting with the biggest customers.
Excellent. Well, we're going to open up for one audience question. First of all, round of applause for our CEOs.
Yeah.